He sent back the word, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we will surrender to you. If that's not going to happen, we'll attack. That changed the attitudes right fast. So next morning they attacked. They're just cordoned off in a field. They sat down and the war was over for them. But oh boy, it was a happy day because we still were looking at Japan. We were under orders that we were going to go straight from Germany to Japan, and that was not a pleasant thought. Yeah. If anything, the Japanese could fight even better than the Germans could. But when Truman, a month or 2 months later, used the 2 bombs to end the war, oh, that was a real celebration that night because we still hadn't moved out of Germany.
You were still in Germany, okay.
So I realized that I may have been blessed with continue to live because of Patton and some of his forces and some of the other ones, including some of my old battalions that I was in, just for training purposes, really, as we moved into the front.
Did everybody believe it was necessary to bomb the city rather than showing the bomb off in a field, in Japan?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, did everybody?
I don't know about Japan.
Yeah.
It could have been because there was a lot of bitter feeling. The Japanese just never quit, and they killed a lot of Americans. And the Corregidor, and there was one other where they took the islands where they had that flag.
Yeah, Iwo Jima.
Yeah, it was Iwo Jima. But I missed all that. I was just behind it. We were not the initial attack force. We were the follow-up. And brother, there was plenty of action there. But they held us back in reserve because they knew that we hadn't been trained or had any experience, I should say, for combat to that extent. So we just kind of lucked out by just being just a little bit late in getting into the real rough action. But boy, were we happy not to have gotten into it. Jeez. When they got to Malmedy the night before at Stavlo, and then down over with Malmedy, where the Germans had unloaded about 3 or 4 companies and then machine gunned them, killed them all. Now, we really didn't like that.
Yeah, that's awful.
God, that guy was carrying half the damn football team on him.
Now, did you see any of the bodies or anything, or you just hear about it?
No, they cleaned some of that up just before we got there, except there was one thing. There was one of our helmets with a hole here and a hole here. And you knew that I didn't know what they shot him with, but it was penetrated. And we knew that man wasn't alive. And that did not make you feel very good toward the Germans either.
So you did a lot of work on the river, so building bridges?
On the Rhine. All along the Rhine. We were all, the combat engineers, we had trucks. We could be assigned and taken in and taken out and moved all around, and if you're lucky, you miss what they're moving you into. If you're unlucky, there they are, right across the river. But that bridge, that was really something that the engineers built on that. That wasn't because the Colmar Pocket was a big pocket of our combat troops, and they were trapped. They couldn't get out, and the Germans were massing more and more troops in there, and we just had the Rhine there. Somebody back in the States earlier had figured out going across the Rhine, and so what he designed the program to where we went to to the Rhine, and then we got a break at Remagen, which is a little town with an old railroad bridge going across the Rhine. I think I mentioned to you before that they were trying to blow the bridge down, so we had more trouble and more of us are going to get killed. But that infantry, bless them, of ours, man, when they saw that, they took that damn bridge and undid all the wiring to blow it up, and it worked. And on top of that, they had built that bridge across on the Baileys.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's normally we use the Baileys, but the Baileys here were used. We sank the German tanks,
Uh-huh.
and they were sunk. The Rhine is a deep river and it's swift.
Yeah.
And out for I don't know how many, about 2-3 weeks, while we were building that bridge, and our outfit was building approaches and what have you. And I was sitting there and they sent me into Remagen 2 or 3 times. I can't quite remember how, because that was just a beehive. We weren't going to give a damn thing back to the Germans.
Uh-huh.
And so I did see an awful lot of activity at that bridge.
Did you actually have to bolt things together personally, or were you ordering people around, or did you have to actually get in there and bolt the sections together and then things? Is that part of what you had to do?
Some engineer outfit did, but they assigned us to building the approaches. They had to have pretty long approaches to get up to the Rhine.
So you kind of prefabricated those before they got there, or were you on the side of the river building these?
Tents, or yeah, I guess it was tents. I don't know. It might have been. It's all kind of fuzzy. So much of it runs together now.
I know. Huh?
But we had. I've got a pair of binoculars. And I've got that Italian Beretta, actually, that I picked up on the Rhine. Before we went across them, I got here, they were sitting there, you know, they just ran off and left them. They didn't want to be caught with those guns, any guns. So I picked up that beautiful little pistol. And wound up sleeping with it under my pillow from then on till the war was.
Well, didn't you have your own gun, or
Big pardon?
did they give you is that the only gun you had, or did you?
We didn't have that. We were supposed to turn those in. But they had us on guard mount with empty rifles.
Oh my goodness!
Hell with that. So I had one little second lieutenant from one of the other companies, and he and I got tangled up one time. And I was a corporal, technical corporal. They could use me either in the damn line as just a doggone private, or they could take me out and use me for something special, which they were inclined to do. And so this little second lieutenant, he was really in love with his stripes and his decorations and all. And he and I tangled. So I got guard duty. I had to take the guard out, station them and all that business. And I had it all done and everything was settled for the night. And I get this call from the second lieutenant out running around the field. What he was doing, I don't know. He said, call out the guard, call out the guard. Somebody shot at me, call out the guard, call out the guard. I looked at the guard, my God, they were dead tired from what had been going on before. So I thought, oh, the hell with him. I don't like him anyway. So I didn't call him out. I just went out to get him. Oh, where's the guard? Where's the guard? I said, sir, you said you heard one shot. Is that right? He said, yes. I said, well, where's the need for the guard now? I said, well, I'm not calling out the guard. If you want to go in and call him out, you call him out. He didn't like that idea either. But I had a in the line, just in the line, I had spent some time in the line before they sent me back for 3 months training in Washington D.C., just out of Washington D.C. Every night we had a pass. We just had to be in by midnight. And then all day we were trained and drilled. And finally, we were called on to go again. But, gee, I couldn't believe it. I would go down the streets in Washington, and I knew where all the good-looking women in the armed forces had been. They were being stationed where these officers could you know, not mistreat them or not step aside or try to rape them. But boy, I'll tell you, some of them were not like. But I got then when I was moved into combat engineers and I had my training and all. Then I really had it made because I got rid of two of these lieutenants that were just absolutely losses. I sent one the word. I said, you know, you can throw your weight around back there and maybe get away with it. But when you hit that front line, you better goddamn well understand whose rifles are going to be protecting you. And two of them believed this. Nobody called on me in. But my own lieutenant, who was a hell of a nice guy, I had 48-hour guard duty where I had to run the show. Sunday morning in this little German town, and I'd had a night before where my lieutenant caught me. What I was doing, when I thought, my God, what am I doing with an empty rifle? And when I've got a loaded Beretta in my pocket. So I guess it was in my holster. But anyway, it was not out in the open where they could see it because we were supposed to have turned them in. And I didn't. But I had it then. What I would do when I was set on a guard mount alone, and I caught some of that. When I got caught alone, I wanted to look like the sloppiest soldier those damn Germans ever saw. And so it worked out pretty well. Because I could ignore them and I could be direct in my speech. And I also knew how to say, no excuse, sir. No excuse, sir. Say it in such a way that they knew I didn't mean it. But they did straighten up once they saw the front line, you know, anywhere near it. And what they had to do in the Ardennes, we had to pull infantry back to work with and under our because the damn roads were 3 big damn 2.5-ton trucks. Ha ha ha. And no, man, they came every which way. One night I was in with a small patrol. All of a sudden we broke into a place where they had the pillboxes. You know, these great big units for, and one we ran across was not occupied, it had been retreated. But boy, the mess they left behind them. I mean, Bangalore torpedoes, and they got holes in them. And I thought, God, I wonder how many of our men died here. But I ran across, after we were into Germany just a few days, I ran across where our troops had gone off and they'd left some things behind. One of the things they left behind was a drop box for fuel phones. Now normally there was just one phone. This had, however, we had company phones. Well, I didn't like the idea of where we were and what we were doing all the time. didn't allow us much flexibility. So I took these phones, there were 2 of them, and their phones worked with our phones. And so I got a hold of a bunch of them, and some of them I've been picking up all along the way and taking them with me. The lieutenant I had, he was kind of a nut, and he kept bringing in all this stuff, technical stuff, saying, "Jim, see what you can do about fixing us a dial system." Dial system in a combat phone? And he got so every time we'd move, I'd leave 2/3 of that behind, and I'd go along with just enough to where but I had to load them up. But I had enough phones that I could put one of those phones in the orderly room. And we had phones instead of 2 field phones. Whenever we'd stop, I grabbed those phones and a couple more of the German phones, and I worked it all out. It took me 3 days, but I worked all the cross wiring out I needed, and when I took the top off those things, everybody, non-coms, and they had phone that went so they could call up their unit. I mean, anybody could call anybody's unit because I gave them each telephone numbers, and then fixed the phones so they rang on from that, and it really works. But he wanted a dial phone. I finally got so tired of the radio combat engineers in our battalion strength and above. They kept trying to get me to come up and join them. If I'd done that, I'd have had sergeant stripes, because my captain didn't like me well enough to give me my sergeant stripes.
Uh-huh.
I went over and found out how much we were getting paid by those damn stripes. I found there wasn't that much from the engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed, I didn't want to go to them because I had it set up then to where I had 2 days off and 1 day on, 2 days off and 1 day on. And the radio operators could work with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because all we needed was one operator behind to answer the radio. You had to pick up the dots and dashes on the radio. I had upgraded us to all fellows had telephones. Oh, I tell you, ingenuity comes in pretty handy sometime when you've got very little around to work with.
Interesting.
But I finally went up to battalion.
Uh-huh.
Said, look, I might be interested in that deal you're offering me all the time. I said, but don't count on it yet.
They were offering you a deal to.
Well, they wanted me those combat engineers that were in the battalion. They had all kinds of high grade toppies with us time, and so they could pretty well call the shots of what they wanted and needed.
Uh-huh.
And what they wanted me for was I had the cleanest cleanest phone that had dots and dashes, which we had to use sometimes. When we went into near combat, we had to go a different route and use those radios. But that depended on what the other side looked like.
Right.
Oh brother, when Truman dropped those 2 atomic bombs, we really celebrated. When the Germans surrendered, we celebrated, but we knew that we were still going to Japan, and that was only going to be maybe just a break in the combat.